Welcome to Flim Flam Film Forum. Old people reviewing old movies. I'm your co-host, Will Freeney.
And I'm Anita Fernandez. We're glad to see you. I hope you're glad to see us.
Because we can't really see you.
No, we can't.
So today we are going to visit two instances of the same basic movie plot. Wolfman, originally in 1941 and subsequently in 2010. Take it away, Anita.
Okay, well, the 1941 version, which was produced by Universal, is a black and white movie named The Wolfman. It's three words. It's not Wolfman like you see in other titles. The lineup, as far as actors, starts with Claude Rains as Sir John Talbot, Warren William as Dr. Lloyd, Ralph Bellamy as Colonel Montford, Patrick Knowles as Frank Andrews, Bela Lugosi as Bella, Maria Ospinskaya as Maleva, Evelyn Ankers as Gwen Conliffe, and the great Lon Chaney Jr. as the Wolfman. And a little aside here, Maria Ospinskaya, I got a little information on her because she's an important player. She was the co-founder of the American Laboratory Theater with Polish actor-director Richard Boleslavsky. She was the first Russian actor from the Moscow Art Theater to teach the Stanislavski method in the United States. Her methods greatly influenced her young students Lee Strasberg and Harold Klurman. The Wolfman was produced and directed by George Wagner. The opening scene is an excerpt from a book. You can see that it's written on the screen. You'll see that the words lycanthropy, werewolfism, is a disease of the mind according to an old legend which persists in certain localities. The victims actually assume the physical characteristics of the animal. There is a small village near Talbot Castle which still claims to have had gruesome experiences with this supernatural creature, unquote. A dapper Lawrence, called Larry in the movie, Lawrence Talbot, sporting a fedora and happy demeanor, rides in a convertible with a chauffeur, a two-seater, actually, toward his family home. He is warmly received by his father, Sir Talbot, played by Claude Rains. Later on, some time passes, and we see Larry adjusting a huge telescope and spying an attractive woman through the window of an antique shop. Larry makes his way to the shop, where he acquires a walking stick with a silver wolf's head handle. During conversation, when he's buying this walking stick, while he openly pursues this young woman, she explains the symbol Talbot finds on the head of the cane as having to do with werewolves. There's a pentagram on it, and she quotes, "Even a man who is pure in heart and says his prayers by night may become a wolfman, when the wolfbane blooms and the autumn moon is bright," unquote. When Larry returns home, his father recites the same quote and reveals the name of the shopkeeper to be Gwen Conliffe. Gwen's friend Jenny joins the duo later on. That's Gwen and Larry, when they later decide to have their fortunes told by newly arrived gypsies. And so they walk into the village, and Larry and Gwen have Gwen's friend Jenny joins the duo, Gwen and Larry, when they later decide to have their fortunes told by the newly arrived gypsies Larry and Gwen had seen roll into town. On the way, as she picks wolfbane, Jenny speaks the aforementioned quote, "Even a man," etc., who's pure in heart. When they get to the little clearing where the gypsies have camped, there is Bela Lugosi, who is the fortune teller, and that's whom Jenny decides to have her fortune told by. Now, this movie, the newer movie, stays kind of true to the sequence of events here in this older movie, the 1941 version. And as it progresses, there are some changes and some definite costume differences and makeup. So let's go into that.
All right. So the subsequent version, Wolfman from 2010, was eventually directed by Joe Johnston, and I'll explain why I say eventually. It's a remake of the 1941 film of the same name, and that's the closest resemblance they bear.
Basically up to the cane. That's about it.
The core characters, the family, Larry and his dead brother Ben and his father John, the Talbots, are all the same, but there are significant differences in that in the original, the 1941 version, the father John is an innocent observer to the onset of lycanthropy in his province. But in this version, he is the progenitor of lycanthropy within the Talbot estate and is eventually revealed to be responsible for its dissemination, let us say. That's not too much of a spoiler, is it?
Yeah.
So the father in the new version is played by Anthony Hopkins, and the living son, Larry, or Lawrence, is played by Benicio del Toro, who actually was also the producer of this version. And he must, in retrospect, be cursing his unlucky stars over the sequence of events involved in the production. And here those are. Joe Johnston became the director, but originally Mark Romanek was scheduled to direct, but he left weeks before filming due to creative differences and budgetary issues. Johnston was hired 4 weeks before the principal photography began under the impression that, and I'm assuming it was the producer's impression, not Joe's, that he could shoot the film in 80 days, as Universal had originally intended. That most certainly did not happen. Reshoots extended the production, inflated the budget, and delayed the film's release. Equally cursed was the production of a soundtrack for the movie. Danny Elfman, one of the greats of soundtracks composition, was originally hired and had completed an entire score when he was replaced by Paul Hastlinger. But Paul created a score that was far too electronic for the studio's taste, and they ended up going back to Elfman's score. And as to those details of delayed release, it was theatrically released on February 12th, 2010. However, production began in 2008. The film was a financial failure, grossing $142.6 million against a production budget of $150 million. So they came out in the red.
Well, yeah, after all those delays, I mean, that costs.
Yeah, because they shot, left the location, and had to go back to the location and reshoot. There are more details of that coming up soon. And for all of this negative blowback, the one bright spot in the final release is that the makeup for the movie actually won the Academy Award for Best Makeup.
Oh, that's great. Because it was very good.
It was very convincing.
Right.
And it's not easy to make a man look like a wolf. Although somebody involved in the production, it may have been Joe Johnston, said that it was actually far easier with Benicio because he was already basically a wolf. He was because Benicio's kind of a hairy guy, apparently. But in terms of the development and filming, here are the details that reveal why it cost so much and came out so late. In March 2006, Universal announced the remake of The Wolfman, as Anita mentioned, the original being 3 words, with actor Benicio del Toro, who was a huge fan of the original and a collector of Wolfman memorabilia. So he was heavily invested in this project.
Right. Well, whenever there's an emotional project, it's not always practical. So
he stayed the distance, even though he might now regret that.
Right.
So screenwriter Andrew Kevin Walker was attached to the screenplay and developed the original film story to include additional characters as well as plot points that would take advantage of modern visual effects. Del Toro looked towards Werewolf of London and The Curse of the Werewolf for inspiration. In February of 2007, almost a year later, Mark Romanek was attached as the director. His original vision was to, quote, infuse a balance of cinema in a popcorn movie scenario. Kind of a low bar to set for the movie, it sounds like to me. And apparently the studio felt similarly. He said about the studio, they don't necessarily understand it or feel that the balance will swing too far to something esoteric, and we could never come to an agreement on the right balance. Ultimately, it made more sense for them to find a director that was gonna fill their idea of the film that they wanted, and we just sort of parted ways. And when they did, in January 2008, Romanek left, and Brett Ratner emerged as a front runner to replace him. But the studio also met with, and this points to just how up in the air this whole production was. They didn't just say, okay, we got Joe Johnston in the on-deck circle. No, they considered Frank Darabont, James Mangold, and Joe Johnston. And they were also interested in Bill Condon, and Martin Campbell was interested. There was a whole team of prospective directors. So they finally settled on Joe Johnston, but they were not quite ready for production yet. Johnston was hired on February 3rd, 2008. We're already 2 years into this process, and they don't even have a production team together. And then Johnston hired David Self to rewrite the script at that point.
A rewrite. So, okay, first delay, second delay, maybe?
Third delay.
Third.
So shooting, that's what they were there to do, was actually shoot a film. Took place from March 3rd to the 23rd. Wait a minute, March 3rd to June 23rd in 2008 in Britain. We're not done yet. This is just the first shoot. At that time, the film was budgeted at $85 million. They shot at Pinewood Studios in Buckinghamshire, Chatsworth, in Derbyshire, and Castlecombe in Wiltshire, because it would just be too easy to shoot in one location. They also shot in Lacock in Wiltshire, a village conserved by the National Trust for Places of Historic Interest or Natural Beauty. So Wiltshire was a village conserved by the National Trust for Places of Historic Interest and Natural Beauty. They were there for 1 day, using the butcher's barn and using it for external shots. Universal donated £5,000 to the village in return for filming in the tithe barn of a scene involving frozen corpses, which I think hit the editing room floor at some point. You don't remember seeing
I do not.
Frozen corpses in the tithe barn,
Like
do you?
in a group? No.
A pile of frozen corpses.
Wow.
In fact, I don't know what a tithe barn is, do you?
Well, isn't that where he went to view his brother's body?
Oh, yeah, maybe.
The makeshift morgue. That was like it was a blacksmith shop. Was what it was, yeah.
And then a funeral scene was also shot beside the Temple of Ancient Virtue at Stowe House, with the temple coated in false ivy and copious amounts of smoke and mist floating over the setting. They didn't spare anything on setting or wardrobe, that's for sure, or makeup, and that's probably what got them that Academy Award. There were also scenes filmed in Dartmoor, Devon, at Foggentor Quarry, and there were pickups at Pinewood, which were conducted in May of 2009. The cast and crew were back on location, reshooting the film in the grounds of the Old Royal Naval College and Park in Greenwich over the weekends of 22 to 25 and 30 to 31 May 2009. We're now over 3 years into this, and we don't have film in the can, so to speak.
No wonder it costs so much.
The purpose of the reshoots was to change the way one werewolf looked in the film.
Oh my gosh.
Previously, it stood on 2 legs, but now it stands on 4. Also, an action scene was added between the Wolfman and the werewolf, which I'm not sure what those two reference.
No, I don't either.
Unless it's between father and son, according to Second Unit Director Vic Armstrong. There's more about the award-winning special effects and makeup, but we'll get to that after we get to the basic differences in the plot and the cast for this later version. Benicio del Toro, as mentioned, was Lawrence Talbot / the Wolfman, and Anthony Hopkins was Sir John Talbot, his father. Emily Blunt was Gwen Conliffe, who is a carryover from the original, and Hugo Weaving, who we'll get to later as our unsung spotlight.
I think she's Connolly in this.
Well, the Wikipedia summary says Conliffe.
Okay.
Hugo Weaving as Inspector Francis Aberline, who's a significant character all the way to the end of the movie, unlike many who succumb to Wolfmen in the interim. Geraldine Chaplin as Maleva, who replaces Bela Lugosi in the role of fortune teller.
Right, and she was, to me, she looked very Roma. She was very good.
Convincing, yes.
Yeah. Great accent, and she spoke a Slavic language during the scene.
And the lesser characters played by lesser actors include Anthony Scher as Dr. Huniger, Dave, who was called to the Talbot estate to tend to the issues revolving around the Wolfman. David Schofield as Constable Nye, David Stern as Kirk, Simon Merrills as Ben Talbot, the dead brother, who makes a flashback appearance. Michael Cronin as Dr. Lloyd, Nicholas Day as Colonel Montford, Clive Russell as McQueen, and Roger Frost as Reverend Fisk, who officiated over the funeral.
Oh, right. All right.
And Max von Sydow appears, kind of like how the original brought Bela Lugosi in.
Yeah.
This one brings in Max von Sydow, who appears as an elderly man who gives Lawrence the wolf head cane. He doesn't find it in an antique shop. He has given it.
That's right. That's right.
But his part was cut from the theatrical film. However, it is it returns in the unrated director's cut. Yay. Makeup effects creator Rick Baker actually makes a cameo appearance as the Romani man who is first killed. That was our makeup genius. And how did they come up with the Wolfman's howl? They didn't listen to Wolfman Jack, apparently. This says that...
What's wrong with that?
Really. This says it was a conflation of the guttural stylings of Gene Simmons and David Lee Roth.
Oh.
as well as opera singers and animal impersonators.
I had no idea. Really, Gene
how could
Simmons
you
and
know?
David Lee Roth. Well,
That's what it says.
I'm very surprised.
So the story has, as I mentioned at the outset, has the distinction that Anthony Hopkins' character, John Talbot, the father, is actually complicit in the evil taking place at Talbot Manor, unlike John Talbot of the 1941 version, who is an innocent seeking to protect his family and his estate, even though the townspeople are more than a little pissed off that their family members are dying.
Yeah.
And some of them, I think in both movies, this is some of the, also a carryover, that in both movies, the townspeople are split in their decision as to whether it is an animal that's responsible or it's the Romani who are living encamped in the vicinity.
Yeah, that's in either movie. It's they're anxious to blame someone or something, but they don't know what.
Right. And they both miss with their projections.
Yep.
And they come to slightly different ends as well. But back to the music for a moment and the special effects, because they are some of the strongest points of this movie. And I'll get to other people's opinions on how less than strong the movie is before I'm done here. So Rick Baker did win the Academy Award, but when he heard that Universal was remaking the film, he eagerly pursued it. As both the Wolfman, the original 1941 version, and Frankenstein inspired him to become a makeup artist as a child. He acknowledged and it was Rick Baker who said, "Oh, I was a piece of cake, turned Benicio into a wolf." He said, and I quote, "Going from Benicio to Benicio as the Wolfman isn't a really extreme difference. Like when I did An American Werewolf in London, we went from this naked man to a four-legged hound from hell, and we had a lot of room to go from the transformation and do a lot of really extreme things. Here, we have Benicio del Toro, who's practically the Wolfman already." To Benicio del Toro with more hair and bigger teeth. So both Baker and del Toro were adamant about the design resembling the makeup created by Jack Pierce for the original movie in 1941. When Johnston signed on, Baker returned to his second design, which is the finished result. The makeup took 3 hours to apply. The challenges of being an actor,
Right.
right here. The makeup took 3 hours to apply and 1 hour to remove.
That's incredible.
So there's 4 hours out of your day. And then if you shoot another 12, 16 hours.
Yeah.
So new pieces of latex prosthetic makeup and loose hair was applied to Del Toro's face each day, while several dentures and wigs were created in case some were damaged. Baker said the transformation would likely be computer generated, which disappointed him, as he would not be involved and felt it would look unrealistic. But Joe Johnston explained that joining the film 3 weeks before photography placed limitations on his ability to film without using CG effects. And he has stated, rationalizing his decisions in retrospect, "I recognized that there were things I was going to be able to do from the beginning, and things that I had to rely on post-production for." In reference to filming Benicio del Toro's actual transformation, Johnston further explained, "I decided to basically shoot just Benicio in the sequence where he transforms and decide in post-production what I wanted the transformation to be." But there's always that adage, fix it in pre.
This is true. When you have your, there's anything can happen. Anything can happen and it does get fixed in post. However, it's always good if not a whole lot has to be done in post.
Depends on that.
There's a time element that has to be honored.
Which wasn't. and we haven't gotten to the actual release dates, but it was postponed multiple times. In February 2009, over a year before the final release, the ZBrush art of the transformation by Baker leaked online. And then, in addition to the film, at the 2009 Halloween Horror Nights, Universal Studios Florida added the Wolfman to the event. It hadn't even been released yet.
Oh my gosh.
But nonetheless, Rick Baker walked away with an Academy Award. And as to Danny Elfman's involvement with the project, he was initially reported to have written a dark, melodic, and moody score for the Wolfman, but that was rejected by the studio because they said it did not fit the film well after being edited over half an hour in length. Due to Elfman being unable to return for rescoring the film because he was contractually obligated to work on Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland. Good thing he had something strong to work on in the meantime. Paul Haslinger was called in. However, he subsequently wrote a contemporary electronic score, which just at the superficially sounds like the wrong thing for this period piece.
Yeah.
Which the studio felt was inappropriate for the 19th century Gothic setting. So Elfman's previously recorded original score is, as a result, the one used in the final film. His version of the Wolfman score was officially released on 23 February. Doesn't say of what year, which in this timeline is significant. I don't know if we really care too much about the merchandising for the movie.
Let's not. Skip it.
But theatrically, the film was delayed several times during production and was previously scheduled to be released. Original schedule for release, November 14th, 2008. And then February 13th, 2009. And then April 3rd, 2009, followed by November 6th, 2009. The film's first trailer was attached. This is crazy. The film's first trailer was attached to Inglourious Bastards, released on August 21st, 2009.
That's very odd.
But, it's studios, producers, what do they know? The film was released on some European markets. Okay, the trailer was released in the summer of 2009. The earliest release of the film was in European markets in February 10th and 11th of 2010. And then the film was released on DVD and Blu-ray in June 1st of 2010. Both editions, DVD and Blu-ray, include the theatrical cut and an extended cut, restoring 17 minutes to the film. The Blu-ray disc's special features include featurettes on making of the film, including 2 alternate endings. The only special features included on the standard DVD are deleted and extended scenes. Best Buy, I didn't know that Best Buy had that kind of inside track, but apparently they do. They released an exclusive 2-disc DVD set that includes a bonus disc featuring most of the BD special features. What are BD special features? Upon the Blu-ray's release, viewers had the opportunity to stream the original 1941 film. And a 4K restoration of the theatrical and extended versions was released on Ultra HD Blu-ray on October 22nd, 2024 via Shout Factory.
So it hit the theater
In 2010.
2010. So, and I saw it in the theater. And I remember being very impressed by the presentation of it. It was dark and brooding, and there was a contrast between when Lawrence Talbot arrives at the home and having traveled through. He travels through. It's sunny. and the film itself is brighter, he gets to the family home and everything is dark. So it's the foreboding thing, that they're promoting with that. So I remember being pretty wowed at the presentation of it, the scope of it, and that I'm always looking during a period piece. I'm always looking at costuming and the sets, and they were excellent, absolutely excellent.
And I can't argue with that. But I have critics in my corner who take issue with the film.
It got
in
panned
general.
hard.
Huh?
It got panned big time.
Allow me to share. On Rotten Tomatoes, the film has an approval rating of 32%.
It's not good.
Out of 100, by the way.
That's not good.
Based on 220 reviews with an average rating of 4.8 out of 10. The site's critics' consensus reads, quote, suitably grand and special effects laden, as you said. The Wolfman suffers from a suspense-deficient script and a surprising lack of genuine chills. I have to kind of agree with that. That it's just like, you felt like Anthony and Benicio were walking through their roles as Wolfmen. On Metacritic, the film has a score of much higher, 43 out of 100.
Wow.
Based on 36 critic reviews, which carry a lot more weight, indicating mixed or average reviews. Audiences polled by CinemaScore gave the film an average grade of C+. Film critic Roger, you want to comment on the C+?
No, yeah, I don't remember there being a letter grade for those, but that's very interesting. I would think there would be like a number.
Normally there is, but CinemaScore
Score,
apparently takes us back to school.
Yeah.
A+ through F is the range of their available ratings. Film critic Roger Ebert,
my favorite,
bow down, gave the film 2.5 stars out of 4, praising the atmospheric locations and melodramatic scope, but lamenting CGI effects that he regarded as detrimental.
Yeah, I thought so too.
And Pete Travers of the Rolling Stone, who I revere even possibly more highly than Roger Ebert, assigned the film 1.5 stars out of 4, concluding, quote, the Wolfman bites, but not, I think, in the way the filmmakers intended. And Owen Gleiberman of Entertainment Weekly praised Del Toro's performance as Lawrence Talbot, comparing it favorably to Lon Chaney Jr.'s in the 1941 film.
I would say that. I agree with that.
But last and least, at the 2011 Savannah Film Festival, Ronald Meyer, then president of Universal Studios, who produced and distributed the film, regarded the film as crappy and considered it to be, quote, one of the worst movies we ever made.
That's sad.
End
I wouldn't admit that in public, actually. I wouldn't.
But you kind of have to cover your...
Yeah, but there's image to be considered. I mean, wow.
And I think that's what they're trying to cover is like, no, we're aware that it's a bad movie. Sorry.
Well, yeah, I guess you have a point there.
In 2010, the year it was released, it did win the 37th Saturn Award for Best Makeup. And the following year, makeup effects creator Rick Baker and supervisor Dave Elsey received an Academy Award at the 83rd Academy Awards for makeup.
Okay, well, the one thing I always wonder when you are going to remake a movie, if it's in black and white originally and you decide to make it in color, I think, I imagine the producers think it's more. I think it's less. I think that the original format should be kind of honored, and see if you can go a little farther with it, you know, with shadow, with contrast, with light and dark. And so I think that they didn't really meet the challenge with that immediate first step. That was, I would have done it in black and white.
Yeah, I think that your point that producers look at color as more in some way or inherently better. I mean, Jim Jarmusch's films, who we agree are wonderful, are almost all shot in black and white. And when they're not, they're so dimly shot that they might as well be black and white.
Right.
And they're incredibly effective.
Because well, for one thing, especially with something that's going to create a mood, color is secondary to the mood you cast on the screen. And I mean, Citizen Kane, which is of course a classic, uses the contrast of shadow and light to convey so much, and it makes it much, much deeper. And in this case, for sure, less is more. You know, color didn't add; it took away from, in my opinion.
I mean, they did. I think, you know, there was some positive comment about the setting and the overall looks, aside from the CGI, and I think that the intention to be dark can still be done in color. I mean,
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Caravaggio's chiaroscuro is, I think it was better than if he'd drawn it in charcoal. You know, if he'd done his paintings in charcoal instead of oil, they would have been less than what he created. But it takes a genius to do that. And
to see that at the other side of it. Because oftentimes planning is one thing, but the vision, you know, if you don't have vision for the end product, I think your effort suffers.
And it's hard in a production timeline like this to have vision for the end product, because the people that started with the project weren't even
Oh my
there.
gosh, it changed hands basically, like what, 3 times, you know? And the locations were, I mean, it sounded like it was really, really difficult, like a supreme effort to get
it
finished.
in the can, in the theater. At least they did manage to come up with a final result in the theater without having to call it back again. There are movies that do that, like do a test release in limited theaters and go, oh, fuck that, we're gonna
and
go
then
back to production.
Yeah, they either shorten it or they add scenes, or sometimes, you know, it just depends on what it is that people seem to object to. When I was a kid, they used to have these, not just a scorecard, but comment card. And you could write on these previews. You could write your opinion about the movie, or, you know, is it too long? Is it too short? They would ask you questions that you would answer, and then you could make a comment. So I don't know that they do that these days when they've got a test audience.
Well, I think that actually CinemaScore, because it says audience is polled by CinemaScore, so I think that was actually an exit survey, the A through F, A through F grading.
Yeah, that sounds like it.
So what further can we say about this? This is the first movie that we not only haven't really agreed on, but that we do kind of agree that it failed.
It failed, but I have to give props to Benicio del Toro, because he kept on going. This must have been really close to his heart. He must have wanted to produce this with such intensity that he decided to try to overcome all this stalling, all this, you know, all the obstacles he encountered. So, like I say, props to him. I think that his determination is what got this movie finished. That being said, he may have been determined to finish it out and yet burnt out by the time it got to maybe key scenes, or just wrapping it and making sure it was cohesive. I think there were a lot of bits and parts that were great, but I think there could have been a better transition from one to the other. Some of the scenes were rather incomplete, in my opinion.
Clunky,
Yeah.
even. I turned the page and realized that we haven't covered any of the lesser contributors. Joe Johnston as a director is not a lesser contributor. He's just an after-the-fact contributor, actually. But he is having an extensive career, including his list of movies directed: Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, The Rocketeer, Jumanji, Jurassic Park 3, The Wolfman, Captain America, The First Avenger. So he's been on a few shoots.
Mm-hmm. And he's apparently connected with adventure. So.
And as this summary of his career says, that much of the work at the beginning of his career combined design and special effects. Specifically, he was the creative designer of the Millennium Falcon.
Oh, wow.
And co-created the design of Boba Fett for The Empire Strikes Back.
Oh.
So for all you Star Wars fans, give some due credit to Joe Johnston.
Yeah, do some reading on him. He sounds like a fascinating character. Not character, but he sounds fascinating.
Member of the community. And our unsung actor for this movie is Hugo Weaving, who plays Inspector Alberline. Did I pronounce that correctly? Who's English through and through. His parents moved him around through almost all of the British colonies outside of North America. But he was born in Nigeria and eventually moved to Australia and then to South Africa, which actually isn't a British colony, but another white people colony.
Not anymore.
Thank the forces that be. He landed his first major role as an English cricket captain at Douglas Jardine on the Australian television series Bodyline in 1984. You're familiar with it?
I am not.
Well, it was in Australia.
I didn't realize he got his start in television. That's the thing.
Yeah. It's fairly rare that an actor with a lifelong career makes nothing but feature films, right?
Right. I guess. It used to be that way, though. There was a clear-cut line.
Well, yeah.
No TV. It's beneath me.
Right.
Kind of thing.
Because it came along long after the inception of movies. Well, maybe not long after, a couple of decades anyway. He was also in the Australian films Proof in 1991 and The Adventures of Priscilla, Queen of the Desert in 1994, which, although it's Australian, I think I remember hearing of it, though never seeing it.
Mm-hmm. I heard of it.
And he got his first AACTA, which is the Australian equivalent of an Oscar, for Best Actor in a Leading Role for The Adventures of Priscilla, Queen. Oh, no, for the former, which was Proof in 1991. His most notable film roles, and these are ones that are notable and memorable for American audiences, are the first three Matrix films.
Yep.
And Elrond in Lord of the Rings, and The Hobbit, and the title character in V for Vendetta. And he was also Johann Schmidt / Red Skull in the Marvel Cinematic Universe film Captain America, The First Avenger. But he has a lighter side and a penchant for voice acting as well. He was in Babe, Happy Feet 2, the Transformers series. He was in the Transformers series as Megatron. And reprised his roles of Agent Smith and Elrond in Matrix and Lord of the Rings game adaptations, respectively. So that's probably enough about Hugo Weaving. I won't turn this into a Judy Greer
Thank goodness for that.
Retrospective.
But now Hugo Weaving is one of those staples. He's becoming that. He's the character actor, the reliable shapeshifter in a way.
Mhm.
He's, Lord of the Rings, and he's been in the Matrix. I mean, can you think of two different characters? Two characters that are so different. I mean,
Disparate.
yeah,
But they are both speculative fictions.
yeah. But he was up for it, and I think that he did a fabulous job in either of those two. He was also great in the Wolfman because he played it with the right amount of sort of acidic tone, and he was an obvious authority on the
Without being supercilious.
right. So yeah, he's becoming we're gonna see a lot more of him, even though we see a lot of him now. I predict he's one of those reliable character actors that everybody's going to want to be on their film.
And he's going to be one of those aging actors because he's currently 65 years old.
Yeah, but he looks great, and he's always he's always up for.
And there are plenty of senior actors that are at the top of their game.
Yeah.
Still, if not more so than ever.
Well, just the shape of him, I imagine he's a costumer's dream. He can be costumed in anything.
Long and lean.
Yeah.
And he's to be applauded for his faithful matrimonial status. He's been married to Katrina Greenwood since 1984.
Wow.
41 years.
That's incredible.
It is.
In show business, for sure.
So,
well,
her main diamond was about that size, but it had a circular facet on top, and then angled facets around the side, and then had a big fat ass band that had chips, like 3 rows of chips going down, like where you got 1 row, she had 3 rows. It was just boggling. And she referred to her husband as my better half. And when he drops the price of a car on your wedding ring, you should
guess
you better
so.
him as your better half.
Right. A luxury car at that.
Rondelay. What's a Flim Flam film forum without a little levity?
Well, let's
Repeat
see
that.
some.
Repeat that after me. We should start naming our national parks with 12-word titles.
Oh, yeah.
For a day.
Not Lecoq, though, okay.
No, Lecoq. No, that was Justin Timberlake's character in Love Guru, Jacques Lecoq.
Brilliant.
So they had some picking up to do, Lucy.
I grow weary.
I thought you grew vegetables.
No, not on our patio.
Thanks for watching.